the readings of Sunday because I assume most of you come on Saturday because to give a space for people to have who cannot come on Saturday to come on Sunday, which is something very beautiful. So the reward of that is that you should attend the liturgy of Sunday. That's what I think in my mind. So we have the readings of Sunday. Today the talk of Christ to the Pharisees and the Jews is about the I and about himself. The I and himself. One question that someone asked, and I think we all ask sometimes, and sometimes we forget about it. You know, when you ask a question and you forgot what was the question about. And then an occasion comes, and that question come up again. And you keep putting it away, and it keeps coming up. And the question sometimes is not formulated in words, but it's there. Why we do what we do? I have kids ask that question. Kids are much more simple and to the point. They know what they want, more than adults. Why we fast? Why would you have to get up early and go to church? Why do you have to attend the long liturgy and stay up late and pray? Why do I have to spend 55 days in fasting? Why all these things? Why Jesus is asking us today to have a simple I? And why he's pointing to himself as greater than Jonah and greater than Solomon? Why we do all what we do, it sounds like not fun. The whole world is eating and drinking and fasting, and feasting, not fasting, you just add an E. Not a big difference. Feasting, enjoying themselves, doing whatever they please. I'll tell you the answer is simple, but this will end all what I'm trying to say. Is that we want to be one with God. It's that simple. It's that simple. We want to unite ourselves with God. We love God, and we want to be with God. This is a very important goal to put in one mind, that actually we don't let go of it. Otherwise, we'll get distracted and miss the mark. It's almost like you're running a race. You don't know where you're going. It's very hard to do that. And once in a while, we have to stop and say, where are we going? As if you're driving to a place where you're going to spend your vacation, to your summer house or to your vacation destiny, and you don't know where you're going. You don't have an address. And you're just roaming in the car with the car in the streets aimlessly. How would that feel? Frustrating, the least. Can you turn it on, please? So the first thing, the question that we ask is, why we have to be strict with ourselves? So people say, Abuna, what's wrong with me enjoying pornography? Why is that against God? I'm not hurting anybody. I'm actually not disrespecting even the images I watch. That's what Jesus is talking about today. I'm not hurting anybody. What's wrong with that? People willingly put their naked images on the internet, and I watch them. So what's wrong with that? How is that hurting anyone? What's that hurting, actually? It's not hurting the people that you're watching. It's hurting our relationship. It's hurting a relationship. It's hurting how we deal with God. So when I want to start with a verse from St. Peter, who is actually summarizing this in a nutshell. He just said it in one verse. And it's 1 Peter chapter 4. So he's starting by talking about Jesus' sufferings, pain. Why would the King of Kings and the God come down, the true God of true God, and suffer? He's saying, since Christ suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourself also with the same mind. Be ready for suffering. The same mind, for he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. Why is that important to cease from sin? What's so big about that? I'm not hurting anybody, Peter. That he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh, but for the lusts of men, but for the will of God. For we have spent enough of our past lifetime in doing the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lewdness, lusts, drunkenness, revelries, drinking parties, abominable idolatries. In regard to these, they think it is strange that you do not to run with them in the same flood of dissipation, speaking evil of you. They will give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead, because they think it is ridiculous that you're not doing the same thing. And then in verse 18, he's saying, am I in 1 Peter? 1 second. Yeah. That is 3. 3:18. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust. What's the purpose? Here it is. That he, Christ, might bring us closer to God, might bring us to God. So the whole point of Jesus going to the cross and dying and resurrection, that we come near God. Imagine his whole life force, his energy, his potentials as a 30-year-old charismatic man with all the gifts of heaven and earth. He speaks and people would listen. They have no other way to do anything but listen to him. He was very attractive to the degree that the Pharisees wanted to kill him. They were very jealous. He has the power to raise the dead. And all of a sudden, at 30 years old, he threw this away and died. Why? And St. Peter says, to bring you closer to God. To what we need to do. St. Paul is going to answer and say, if he had died for us, then we should live for him. He didn't die for us to be attached to him personally. He wants us to bring us to his Father, the ultimate source of everything and the goal of everything. To be with God is everything you need. To be cut off from God is death. That's why people who knew what it means to be excommunicated dread it. They dread it. They say, anything but to be excommunicated. There was a Catholic saint, I've read his story, his beautiful story, his Padre Pio. They told him, you're doing miracles and you have stigmata and you all that mumbo-jumbo, where the church doesn't need you, they said. And what his answer was, but I need the church. Maybe the church doesn't need me, but I need the church. Anything but to be excommunicated, he said. You know, take me and send me away in a very remote place where I don't need to see anybody, but don't cut me off the church. So Jesus came and suffered so that we become one with God. He will unite you and me, and he is uniting you and me. Today we're going to take him in communion, and through him we will be one with God. Then, if I am to be one with God, can I do whatever I please with my desires that belongs to the world? See, in Christianity, there is no wrong and right. There is what? There's nothing in the New Testament commandments that says, do not commit adultery. Do not do this. But Jesus explains it very simply. He says, if you look at a woman or a man with lustful thoughts, you've already cut yourself from God. You're already hurting your relationship with God. There's many verses that points that out. I'll take some of them from that competition between the world, the spirit of the world, and the spirit of God in the New Testament. So one of them in Ephesians, where St. Paul speaks about drunkenness. This is a simple pleasure. Again, I'm drunk. I promise you, Abuna, I'm not going to drive. I'm going to get drunk. It's not going to drive. I'm going to just, have some disinhibition. Take the cortical inhibition. It just takes enough alcohol to cut down that don't all the time. St. Paul in Ephesians have a substitute. He said in Ephesians chapter 5 and in verse 16, he said, in verse 18, and do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, means letting go of all your guards, but be filled with the Spirit. What do you understand from this? I understand two things. In St. Paul's mind, a person who experienced the filling of the Spirit, filling of the Spirit feels like getting drunk. That's the first thing I understand. He's saying, I have a very good substitute for your desire to be disinhibited. And that substitute is to be filled with the Spirit. Which Spirit, St. Paul? Is the Spirit of God. To be one with God. And the second thing, the two are actually in opposite directions. You cannot have the two together. You have to choose. And that's why we say in the Old Testament, God is a jealous God. You cannot have Him and something else. Some people might think, and God forbid any of us, I can cheat my wife. She will never know. What she doesn't know will never hurt her. Can we do that with the Spirit of God? Absolutely not. There's no way. You cannot cheat the Spirit of God. You want to be filled with the Spirit, you have to abandon drunkenness. In the same way, St. Paul spoke about sexual desires. In the same way, you wouldn't have this very vehement things against sexual immorality, but you would have an advice. You want to be friends with God, don't do it. So in the sexual desires one, you have the 1 Corinthians, St. Paul speaks about that too. And in the chapter 6, he's making the same comparison. And he's saying, especially to the Corinthians who indulged very much in all sexual pleasures. In verse 6, he says, chapter 6. Chapter 6, verse 16. Don't you know that he who is joined to a harlot is one body with her? Okay. For the two, he says, shall become one flesh through that intimate relationship. By the way, if just for your general knowledge, if a man and a woman in the Coptic church or any Orthodox church or even the Catholic church got married in the church and had the ceremony, but they had not slept together in the bed and had not that husband-wife intimacy, they can annul the marriage as if it didn't exist. Just for your knowledge, because some people need to know that. If that is not consummated, this is called consummation. They're not yet one flesh. It's almost like attended the liturgy but didn't take communion. Okay? But then he continues, but he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. Here we go again. Don't be drunk with the wine that has dissipation, means liquor in general, but be filled with the Spirit. He's making the same comparison. What is that? Tells me again. In one aspect, that sexual pleasure that comes from indulging in the flesh is actually surpassed by the pleasure to be joined to the Lord, to Christ. Surpassed. To those who seek Him with all their hearts. You know, there's a certain intensity in the sexual pleasure. That intensity in the Spirit can yield a much higher pleasure in the Spirit. And again, the second conclusion, they are actually in the opposite directions. That's why the church recommends, and it's not a sin, but it recommends that in the fasting time, husband and wife stay apart so that you can enjoy the pleasure of intimacy with the Lord. It's not a sin to do it, because there is no sin in the husband and wife relationship. It's a very holy gift from God to the church. But in the fasting time, we want to direct our attention and all our energy to be one with the Lord. So he says, but he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. And he's putting the two together again. So in the church, we know that our goal is to be united with God and enjoy that union, to have that pleasure of being one, to be filled with the Holy Spirit, to be one with Christ. Today you're going to take Him in communion. And those who are ready for us, for that, and prepare themselves, will enjoy Him big time. There's a difference between someone who, I can make that analogy even further, and I say, there is a sexual intimacy between, I'm not married, but I know that from medicine and also from confessions, that a husband and wife don't enjoy it. They say it's a chore. It's a routine. Why? There's not enough love. There is not enough eagerness. There is not enough need for the union. Those who will enjoy the intimacy with God, those who are eager to be united with Him, those who are not eager to unite with Him will find nothing. It will be very difficult, and they will not pursue it because they don't have that eagerness in their heart to love God. So this is what Jesus is talking about today. He's talking about if your eye, this is what He said, if your eye is darkness, how can the eye be darkness? He started first by saying our light sources, the chandeliers and the light bulbs, you don't put them under. You have to put them the highest point so that the light can shine everywhere. That's the same thing. God put our eyes not in our belly, not even in our chest, not in our neck. He put it in our head. And where in our head? In the highest point. What does that mean? He's saying, think about it. If God, the Creator, had give you eyes and He put it right on top of everything, what does it mean? It means your eyes have to be clean. It means that the eyes is benefiting the whole body. It's put on top of everything. It's like a watching tower that will watch for you so you don't stumble. And if our eyes are bringing darkness, and He's shifting now to the spiritual mode, He's saying, look at people when they look at things. They got envy in their eyes. They got jealousy. They got bad thinking, evil thinking. They're always seeing things in the negative light. And then most of all destructive is to look at pornography and to start yearning for lust. And that is a problem. That's a huge problem because it cuts me off from Christ. When I'm supposed to be putting on Christ, St. Paul says, don't you know that your bodies are the members of Christ? I'm supposed to be with Him, one with Him. Can I take those eyes and make them see things that Christ would never see? I'm dragging Him to a place that He would never want to go. The pornography is condemned as a tool to cut even children. That's why I would urge, and I urge all the time, all the parents, please don't leave your kids with smartphones or tablets. It used to be a problem with adults. Now it's no more an adult problem. It's baby's problem now. The problem with iPhone and the like, very intuitive. Even a 2-year-old can use it. I'm sure that you heard that pediatricians would suggest on a physical, medical basis should not expose your kids to digital media or digital screens younger than 2 years. But more than that, we are going to destroy a human being and cut them from God for the rest of their lives that they have to struggle with if they get addicted to that stuff. So this is, and I would go back and summarize, to belong to God, is to yearn for God, to want to direct everything we do, even our daily lives, to be one with Him. And that would explain to you everything we do, everything we do. There is nothing that we do that is not directed. Everything we do in the church, outside the church, your daily lives, how you sleep, how you wake up, how you work, how you speak, how you handle your clothing, everything is explained on the basis to bring us closer to God. If you do that, that's how saintly is. And the end of it is light. Jesus said this. He says, if your eyes are light, your whole body is light and will shine like a candle, like a chandelier. We saw this in the saints. We saw it in Jesus. You have the Saint Arsenius. You used to see him standing at night praying, and his whole body is lit up. St. Macarius also saw St. Maximus and Domidius, and at night they were actually light columns ascending with prayers to heaven. And our Lord Himself, we went to pray above the mountain. In the Feast of Transfiguration, we saw Him as a candle, lit up. They couldn't look at Him from the light. We ask God to give us this purity of mind, purity of intention, our intentions to be pure, so that we become one with Him, because He came and suffered to make that union happen. To Him is the glory with His good Father and Holy Spirit, now and forever.